Good morning. We're continuing in letter number 6, and we're discussing the original question, of course, is how do you find a concept of planting kindness, planting tzedakah brings the truth. MS, we said it brings the truth, and we're trying to discuss the idea of the connection between tzedakah and the idea of MS, the idea of truth. I went through a couple of concepts, and we explained the idea is first to have the idea of Rahmanis. What does that mean? That we have to tap into the level of Rahmanis on Hashem. That's what we got to do. How do you have Rahmanis on Hashem? What do you feel bad for? You feel bad, we said, for Hashem's tremendous, unbelievable, infinite greatness coming down to such a world. So the last class we discussed how high, what type of level of godliness we're talking about. That's a really high level that it doesn't even consider the existence of the world as an existence. And that level, which doesn't have any modification and any change to its essence, comes down into this physical world. And now that we have Rahmanis. Today we're going to take it one step further before we get into the final insight of this chapter. And that is, not just does Hashem, who is so great, come down to this world, but look where he comes down into. You could have different destinations. Sometimes a person, really should have his private jet, but he flies first class or business class. Then you can have that he flies, regular class. Then he can fly Spirit Air. Then he can fly, in the cargo section. No, Spirit Air is beautiful, but it's not the highest level of comfort. No, it is. Listen, if you don't mind a metal folding chair.
And I net you.
Yeah.
And there seems to be more reliable.
Yeah, and no criticism. I don't want to be sued by Spirit Air. A metal folding chair is good. And good morning. So the more you're put down from your place where you should be, you're the king, you're God, and where you coming down into the lowest low. What is the low? We're going to talk about why the human body, why the physical human being is actually lower than most other things in this world. And we'll explain that. What is that? In general, first we find that our bodies are called mishcha de chivya. We are called the skin of the snake. It says that after the snake defiled Chava, then it says he left the human beings with his skin, his zuma, his impurities entered us. Now, the Alter Rebbe is going to use a very interesting detail to focus on our imperfections. He's not going to say that we do sins or we're corrupted. He's going to say one thing: we have a leaning towards giving in to our pleasures. And he's not talking about forbidden pleasures. He's talking about enjoying a good hot cup of coffee, enjoying a good cheese Danish, a croissant, a steak. What does that mean? These are permitted behaviors, but that's what we're pulled toward. You see, in the world, we divided up a number of times everything in the world different categories. We have that which is the shalosh klippos atameis, that which is impure, that which is like pork, like forbidden relationships, like fruit of an old arla tree, a tree that hasn't yet produced fruit for 3 years. Those are all forbidden klippa. We're not talking about that. We're not that. But then you have things that are very holy. Tefillin, mezuzah, those are holy. They've been used for something good. Then you have what's called klippas nega. Klippas nega is the human body. Klippas nega is every coffee in the world, every permitted thing in the world is klippas nega. And what does that mean? It is neutral. It could be used for good, and it could be used for bad. A cup of coffee could be used to enjoy a Tanya class, and suddenly a cup of coffee is no longer a cup of coffee. It's a Tanya class assistant, booster, enhancer, or it could be an indulgent experience where I don't make a blessing and I drink it because I'm indulging, and it could be very much the 3 klippas of impurity. But the cup of coffee on its own doesn't have a pull in either direction. You see, a cup of coffee is not saying, oh man, if I could only get into the world of, temptation. Or a cup of coffee is neutral. Unlike the human body, the Jew in particular, more than anything else, has a pull towards things that are self-indulgent, even possibly forbidden, but we're not focusing on that. We have a natural pull, and it takes effort to keep our head straight. We see a piece of chicken. I can't speak for everybody. I'll speak for myself. I see a good piece of freshly made chicken. I'm like, that looks yummy. My first response isn't, oh, I could serve Hashem with that. You have a good cup of coffee. You don't say, oh, wow, I could feel very spiritual. No, it's like, that's a good cup of coffee. That felt good. So the pull is in that direction. That is a result of the snake. What was the whole point of the snake? Pleasure. You see, before the influence of the snake, you would see anything in the world as purposeful, with a mission-oriented. The snake said, that looks good. That looks yummy. That approach of being into self-care, selfish behavior is all about me. In the world today, it's considered very good and beautiful, noble. Self-care. Self-care is good if it's for a purpose of being a better person. It's for a purpose of being a better mother, a better spouse, more involved in your Yiddishkeit. But self-care for the sake of self-care has no value. It's just indulgence. So the human body has that natural pull. And that's what we're going to say inside now, that not only did God come down into this world, but he put the godly soul in the body of a Jewish person that has a natural pull towards temptations, permitted ones, but there's still temptations. That good, perfectly made cheese Danish. I mean, that's yummy. And we're going to be pulled after that because it tastes good. And we'll take effort to say, you know what? Instead of just eating it because it tastes good, I'll eat it because it's going to enhance my day. I'll have a better day. I'll be more focused on my davening because I ate something and I'm relaxed and I have to think about food. So that attitude that comes, meaning our natural impulse, is always going to be about self. That's the shame, so to speak, of the human body, which is not true, but every other permitted thing in the world. Every other type of klipas nega is permitted. It's a rock. The rock has no interest in doing something good or bad. It's neutral. Let's see what happens to me. What's going to happen to me? I'm a coin. Will I use for a pushka? I used, to something negative. So this pull of the person is a bit shameful. And that is where this godly soul came into. So we're further enhancing or building up the rachmanis we have. If Hashem would have gone into the godly soul into a cup of coffee, good. So the cup of coffee doesn't have any shameful energy to it or impulse. But the human being has some impulses. Again, not because they're sinful, but the fact that I have the impulse is an indication of my connection with that which is lower than me. And that's a sign of you're not neutral. You've got a leaning towards self-indulgence. And that's what we're going to say here. We're on page Kuf Tes, which will be the equivalent of 217. And we're towards the bottom of the page. I'm sorry, I'm saying the wrong page. I'm sorry. We're on page Kuf Yud, which is equivalent to 217. And we're 2 lines at the bottom of the page. Okay. My page turned. In addition to this, meaning not only this, this machmanas, this we were saying before, we were quoting from the Shema, the blessings of Shema, that God is mereimim, he's above time, he's above world, and he has to come down to this world. If you look at the further in the Shema, we allude to a second point. We say, if not, besides this, the Rachmanis Gedelim Me'ed Me'ed, this Rachmanis on the godly spark that comes inside of us is huge. Ala nitzutz, on this spark, Hashochen Beguf, HaChoshech Ve'efel, that settles down and dwells inside our body. Usually we try and build up a person. That we say you're a great person with so much potential. Here we're focusing on the weakness of the person, the fragility, the fact that we're a darkness, a place that has an impulse of self. Because by the way, that's our impulses. If you're not a tzaddik, if you're a beinoni, your natural impulse is not how you should be living. That's your animal soul. As we said, the animal soul has 3 names. It's called the animal soul, it's called the vital soul, and it's called the natural soul. Nefesh HaBehema, Nefesh HaMahamis, Nefesh HaTzivis, and Nefesh HaChiyonus. The animal soul is the lowest level. It's animalistic. Nefesh HaChiyonus is very nice. It gives you life. It's what keeps your blood pumping. It's what keeps your temperature modulated at 98.6 degrees. It's what keeps the chemistry in your body working. That's the vital soul. That's one part of it. And the third part is your natural soul. How I react, how I interact with the world. My natural impulse is self-care. I shouldn't fall off a cliff. I shouldn't touch something that might burn me. I shouldn't do things that are uncomfortable. I should take care of my health. Included in that is I'm attracted to things that feel good. To overcome that, we use our godly soul to say, hey, not everything that feels good you have to do. You have to dance at every wedding. You have to give in to every impulse. The famous line of Rabbi Shais Taub, that if you want to know if you're a tzaddik or a beinoni, for 24 hours, every impulse you have, act upon it. If you haven't done a sin in 24 hours, you're a tzaddik. Because usually the impulses are not godly. So the nature of the body is to impulse a certain way. And because we're intelligent people, and we're mature people, and our minds are supposed to control our hearts, and then all that matters, we don't blurt out everything we say. You have a filter. Just because a person walks into the room and they seem to have, a smudge on their face, you don't have to say, hey, your face is dirty. But it's true. You have to have your seichel control your emotions. And the same thing is true, that every impulse that we have, do we act upon it spiritually? So, but the fact that we have that impulse is a darkness. It's a shameful side. Mishcha de chivya, it is the skin of the snake. Top of next page. Olu lekabel tuma, which is ready, which means it's waiting. It's so ready to accept impurities. The animal soul, the body, the way we are naturally, if we're just given to natural impulses without overriding our impulses, are not always in tune to godliness, and usually not. The kabel tuma, to become impure, ul hisgael, and to become dirty, b'kol ha'tayvis or latzlan, with all the pleasures of the world. A person given to every pleasure, which means you lose the ability to have a filter. You lose the ability to consider, is this right or wrong? I say what I want, I eat what I want, I look where I want, I think what I want, and it starts off all with permitted things. There's nothing wrong with giving into temptations for having a cookie. I made a blessing. But after your body gets used to giving into temptations, you start giving into bigger temptations and having a harder time controlling your impulses. So this whole role is a sort of a shameful existence. So how do we survive that? How do we overcome that? Lula, if it were not Shakadosh Baruch Hu Magen Loi Hashem, which means this godly soul that we have, which is the godliness inside of us, is like our assistant. So it's like our wiser older brother or a wiser friend that says, hey, or older sister. Not everything you want, you have to touch. Not everything you see, you have to do. You just relax. In other words, the godly soul says, take it easy. I know that looks attractive, but you don't have to have each thing. But nicely eyes, and it gives you the strength, and the power, the etzem, because of the word bone, the strength of character, to battle the natural impulses of the body and its interests, its pleasures, and to overcome them and be victorious. I know that right now I had an impulse to do this. I'm proud of myself. I didn't give it. I didn't take a second piece of cake. I didn't give and have this. I didn't add, extra toppings to my whatever. But why didn't I do it? Because I decided I don't have to give in to every pleasure. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have a good cup of coffee or a good ice cream. It means contain yourself. Don't give in to all the impulses. And this is what we say if you look at davening in the blessing of the Shema. No, Shabbos, you have to have all the desserts. Shabbos is Shabbos. Shabbos naturally.
Everybody else.
Right. Shabbos, by the way, all those impulses are good. Because
Shabbos, if you're saying you shouldn't like something crave or something that you're not supposed to eat, right? So you overcome your will. But when it's something that it's okay.
It's a very good question. We addressed this primarily in chapter 7 of Tanya, in the very, very beginning. And we said, what's considered unholy? Every single thing in the world that's not serving Hashem.
So you can have
one second.
Cake and say, I'll have this cake and then I'll be able to daven.
Oh, that's all it is. That's all it takes. When it comes to, if you remember this.
Even if it's a lie, that's it.
Well, no. It doesn't have to be meant completely.
It's going to make you daven.
It's going to give me energy.
By the way, it's a very interesting conversation.
The whipped cream.
It doesn't have to be, by the way, so profoundly meaningful. We'll see soon. I'm going to share a story soon that will help the subject.
I just feel like if I make a blessing over it, I've elevated it.
Yes. By the way, if you think that I'm making a blessing to elevate it right now, that also counts as a change in the status.
That's why I have to do extra blessing on your visit.
Yeah. Say extra l'chaim on the mashke. So I'll give you an interesting thing we talked about a long time ago, around chapter 7. And we said when it comes to doing things that are sinful, your thoughts don't help. You can't say, I'm going to have this pork, but with this pork, I'm going to be a better parent. I'm going to be a better spouse. I'm going to daven better. Thoughts don't help with things that are forbidden. Same thing is, thoughts that are missing don't ruin a mitzvah. Obviously, a mitzvah with good thoughts is better. If you put on tefillin with somebody, you light a Shabbos candle, I have no idea, but Rabbi said I should do this. I don't know why I'm doing this. You get the mitzvah regardless of whether you understand it or not, or what you think about. Even if you say, you know what, I don't even want to do this, but my rabbi's nudging me, so I'll do it. There, of course, is a better way to do the mitzvah, but the mitzvah is done. When does thoughts really matter? By permitted things. And it's incredible how important it is. If you take a piece of cake, let's say, it's like a good piece of chocolate cake, or even better, good smooth cheesecake. You take a good piece of cheesecake, and you, while you're eating it, thinking, this is the best cheesecake I had, I'm loving this moment. You have just dragged down the cheesecake to a place of indulgence and unwholesomeness spiritually. That same piece of cheesecake, if you say when I'm eating it in your mind, you know what? I'm making a bracha, I'm going to bench, I'm using this cheesecake for a good mitzvah. Or I'm going to use the strength to learn the daven. You just took the cheesecake and transformed it completely. And not only that, if you didn't think of it when you had the food, you go, oh, you know what? Now I ate a piece of cheesecake. It's not too late to make it up. It says, the Rabbi Alter said in Tanya, even after you had it, you can say, you know what? That energy, that happiness I just got from this piece of cheesecake, I'm going to use to daven better. You elevated it. So what you think about transforms permitted. It comes out that by permitted things, it's all about what you think and your attitude and your approach, not what you're doing, because it's a permitted behavior. If it's going to be a positive influence in the spiritual nature of the world, or negative influence, it's completely up to what you think. That doesn't work for a sin, it doesn't work for a mitzvah. Of course, a mitzvah that you think about what you're doing and you feel it, gives it wings, as we said, can fly to a higher place. Ava and Yira are the wings of a mitzvah, but the actual experience of the mitzvah is done no matter what you thought. Certain mitzvahs, they say you must have in mind certain things. Okay, there are certain mitzvahs you must think about it. Sitting in the sukkah, it says you must think, about, I remember the Jews went out of Egypt. Yeah.
But look at this story that the guy said at the convention, the doctor, that he just saw people, they were dressed like Jewish people. Just from seeing them, he already had the will to go to search what it is.
Yeah.
Like,
the Rebbe speaks about this a lot, by the many times in early years especially, that you don't know the impact of you walking down the street with a yarmulke or walking to shul, with your kid. You have no idea. Someone walking by or driving by looks and sees, 1 second, I remember my grandmother used to walk to shul, and you impacted you have no idea. This person starts thinking about it, starts reading a book about, the shtetl, gets inspired, lights Shabbos candles. They're full for that. But again, we're talking now about the approach, how we interact with the world, that we have to approach the world in a way that we don't do it for selfish, indulgent purposes, which is natural impulse of the body. Since the snake introduced a certain feeling of pleasure. Until then, pleasure didn't exist as personal pleasure. That's why they weren't embarrassed to be naked, because there was nothing about the mitzvah of creating a child outside of doing a mitzvah, no different than putting on tefillin. Suddenly became selfish appreciation and enjoyment of a mitzvah. That was like, well, that's embarrassing. I'm indulgent. The whole embarrassment of self is about self. Today, it's again, our society is so ingrained about taking care of ourselves and self-care that we forget it's not self-care for indulgent purposes. It's self-care to being a better producer of God's ultimate mission. And again, the best way to think about this whole thing is a person at work. If you have a job, and your job is you get paid by the hour, and you're sitting in the office, and you start doing things that are nothing forbidden. You're not doing something that you're stealing, but you start using your time for doing something else. Someone can say to you, 1 second, here at Abduthi, why you spend less hour writing personal letters? So if you're taking a break or you're doing things that person that's going to help you have the rest of your day, yeah, stop and have a coffee, stop and have a snack, go have lunch. That's part of your service, because you have to be healthy. Some places put a gym in the building. You have to go to the gym. You get to go to the gym. But if you're doing things in the office that are personal, it's not because it's wrong to take any personal. You're on a job now. You have a job. You can't just sit there and use the company computer to write letters to your friends. Okay, you have a note to respond. We have a certain amount that we allowance. We allow it every hour, 5 minutes of side notes. But for an hour to sit and do it, but you say, 1 second, nothing wrong with it. I did nothing wrong. I typed a clean note. It was nice. It was appropriate. It was a good message. Yeah, but it wasn't for the company. So if you find a way, you say, no, I'm writing to a friend that, by the way, I want to tell you about the company I'm serving in. It's a great company. They want to do business. And by the way, it's good to see you at the Hanukkah party. That's different, because now suddenly the whole letter to the person became company service. So this is how we see everything. Are you take advantage of yourself, or are you doing your mission? That's how we're 24/7 on the job. Except our job does allow us time off for sleeping, allows us time off for eating, time off for exercising, time off for visiting friends, taking a walk. But all of that is only to be a better producer. So once we change the mission and we become indulgent in self, that's wrong. And to this body that's naturally impulse for self, God is invested in. And if not for God's assistance, we wouldn't survive. If you look at the next few lines in the same blessing of Shema we spoke about last time, where it talks about Hashem, then it says, next words say, that Hashem protects us, He's our strength, He's our shield. What does that mean? If not for our godly soul constantly influencing and overriding our impulses, we'd be a pretty sorry picture. That means how functioning as a proper, healthy, wholesome person is because of a godly soul that gives us, again, if you think about it just in the most practical terms, the godly soul is your intellect, the animal soul is your heart. I have my mind overcome my desires, my impulses, my interests, and then it's focusing me to have the right interest, the right type of heart, etc. Okay, now we're going to go into the final discussion, and you'll see how everything comes together like a puzzle. Now, to take this one step further, this idea, so that was the idea of having Rahmanis. The Rahmanis that we have to have on Hashem is two parts. High existence that came down to this low world, and how low our bodies are, how low we are, that we not only came into, business class, or first class, or whatever, to regular passenger class, he came into the most uncomfortable seat on the airplane, doesn't lean back. Hashem was stuck, so to speak, inside of our body that has an impulse and a pull towards self-indulgence. Now we're going to explain something we spoke about a long time ago in the Tanya, but it's going to be helping us very much to make the next step toward the answer to our original question, the connection between staka and emes, truth. There's something that it's known, the Ishbeis Mine, the Chele, or the Cheme, Dal Vav Reish stands for, the Chele, which means awe, like Yira, and Cheme means Ava. There's two types of awe and love. One type we're going to see is what we develop on our own. We go and we develop a certain appreciation either of awe of Hashem or love Hashem, depending on what we think about. I think about Hashem's greatness. I think about Hashem's power. I think about Hashem's, unlimited nature, and it gives me an awe. Or I think about Hashem provides us with oxygen, and He takes care of us, and He makes our blood pump. All the things Hashem does in this world, it gives us love. So you could develop within yourself, the more you understand God, you could develop stronger and stronger senses of awe, or stronger and stronger feelings of love. And that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to meditate and think about, we want to daven or want to do a mitzvah. Think about this awesome, great God is interested in me right now. Imagine if I was standing in front of a king, back in the day when kings were kings. And right now he has an interest in me. I can feel overwhelmed. Einstein wants to hear my opinion on the subject. That's a little uncomfortable. Imagine, so here, or he's taking the time to explain me a funny joke or a thing. Suddenly I'm feeling a closeness that I think about it. I love this guy. I love this person. I love God. So that's one type of feelings of emotion, awe and fear. That's another type, a gift from God. You never would have this feeling. This is something you can't reach. You see, with our own strength, there's a certain limit how high we can reach. How high can we reach? It all depends, how intelligent you are. A very intelligent person could develop very powerful emotions through powerful intellectual journeys. The more you think about things, the more it affects you emotionally. So a tremendous level to a brilliant man. A lesser brilliant lady or brilliant man, not so much. But how high could you go? Only as far as the human intellect could reach. But there's higher than that. There's a lot higher and higher levels you can reach. We see in life people who thought they reached the maximum of pain or happiness, and something happened that God made happen to them, which takes you to a whole new level of sadness, bitterness, pain, or joy. Because there are things that can happen to us that we can't develop on our own. That's how the world is. Imagine in spirituality, Hashem could give you a gift. I'm going to share with you a vision, the Baal Shem Tov at certain times would do it, to show the Talmud, and they would put their hands on each other's shoulders, and it would give them a vision of how the angels in heaven feel, or how beautiful it is to hear the Tehillim of simple people. And they would suddenly have an ecstasy. They couldn't get there, but you were gifted it. The most famous example we find is a Kohen. A Kohen has a level of holiness. You don't earn it. You're born it. You can't say, I became much more spiritual. I became a Kohen. You can't become Kohen. It's something Hashem gifts you at birth. If you have a Kohen, your soul, you're a Kohen. If not. You can't become a Kohen. In other words, Kohen is the ultimate example of a gift. Now, these gifts are very unusual. You have to usually do something to earn the gift. And as we spoke many times about this concept, the example of a tip in a restaurant, or a tip in a person does a service for you, a taxi driver, whatever it is. A person who gets paid $10 an hour, $15 an hour, whatever it is, When they're done the amount of hours, you pay them that many hours, they earned it. They're not going to get more than they earned. Some people earn $100 an hour, a fancy lawyer maybe $300 an hour, a politician, $200,000 an hour, whatever they get for doing whatever they do, they give a talk. But a tip has nothing to do with what you earned. You could sometimes be in a restaurant and this fancy guy who's worth billions comes in and he gives you a tip of $1 million. That never happened to me. But they can give you a tip, and no one's going to say, 1 second, they worked for 2 hours. That doesn't make sense. They're going to go, wow, you're a good tipper. Why? Because the tip, even though, yes, I arouse a tip by working on myself, but the actual amount of the tip has nothing to do with what I earn. You can get a tip of $100, a tip of $5. It all depends really on the person. It depends who you can give amazing service to someone who's regular off, and they'll give you a $20 tip, which is generous, and a great guy who not such a great service, and they might give you $10,000 or $1,000 or $500. Why? Because a tip is not based on what you did. It's a gift, but it's a gift that to you. So when a person works on themselves to develop awe, to develop feelings of love to Hashem, Hashem might go to someone, you know what? I like the way you're dedicated here. And he gives you a tip, which is hundreds of times greater than you ever would have earned on your own, but it's a gift from above. So we're going to talk about the difference in those two things.
I mean, granted, there are people that give a tip no matter what, but a lot of people say, I got great service, you were wonderful, I'm going to give you
yes
or whatever.
That's the complicated part of it. The complicated part is by tips, and that's why it's such a good example for here. By tips, really, you did something to earn it. You went above and beyond. But why someone give a tip usually above a regular tip? Once in a while, I give a tip to a taxi driver nicer than they deserve. Because a guy, you know what? I had to wait 5 minutes and they didn't complain. They could have just charged me another $3. They didn't. You know what? I'll give them $10 a tip because I appreciate the Mejlkai. So, but usually it's something you did. But what you didn't earn $1,000. It earned another $5. You're getting $12 an hour. So okay, I'll pay you another half an hour's work to give you all your hours. Let's say the whole bill came out to be $70. And I'll give you now $100 instead of $70. To get that much of a tip doesn't make sense, except I appreciate it. You did something anyway. I'm going to do something for you. So that's what's tricky about this, because on one hand, we say that it's not something you did. It's something Hashem gave you as a gift. But this is a gift that Hashem gives you usually, even though there's exceptions, usually you only get this gift if you tried your best and you did what you could. Then Hashem says, you know what? You did what you could. I'll take over from here.
But sometimes you don't have to get
right. Right. And sometimes you don't get the gift. There are people that work very hard, don't see the gift. People don't get a tip. Sometimes you don't get a tip, either because the guy had no more money on him, or because he forgot, or because he didn't appreciate what you did, or he's planning a much bigger gift to you later. He says, you know what, instead of giving you $20 now, I'm going to buy you a new car. There's different examples that Rebbe gives about the father who gave the child a toy, and then he decides, you know what, I'm going to give the child a better toy. I'm looking at him. He deserves the Nintendo 7 instead of 27. So he takes the toy, goes back to the store to change it in. The kid's like, what happened? You took away my toy. The father didn't want to tell you that, the Black Friday ends in about 20 minutes. If I don't run now, if I sit and explain to you what I'm doing, it's not going to help you. So I'm going to take the toy and run back to the store and change it in. And the kid's like, I didn't even open the box yet. And then you come back with a much better. He goes, you ever use that concept when the tzaddik sometimes passes away, or you go into a place of seeing not seeing the tzaddik. Why? He says, because he has to go back for a short moment to give you a much bigger revelation. So, but couldn't you explain us what's going on? Not always is there the time and the situation to explain it to you. Sometimes it requires faith. But this idea that, we're getting a bit off track here, but sometimes the return you don't see right away. That's where I was going. Yeah, the return you don't see right away because, for whatever reason, for example, that reason, that there was no time to explain you that I'm going to give you a much better gift later. But then it came, yeah.
I'm sorry, question. A talent falls under the same. Somebody has a talent, somebody's a great pianist, somebody's a great, sports person, somebody's all those are all talents, a dancer. Do they fall under the same?
I'll give you the famous answer, yes and no. And I'll tell you why yes and no. Yes means it's called the same category because people are giving gifts other people don't have. I could try all day on light and I could go to the best trainers. I'm never going to become a Yitzhak Perlman violinist. I'm never going to become an artist like the greats. David Nachman, I think it's a much better example. Okay, but at the same time, if I don't work to develop that talent, I'm never going to tap into it. That talent is given to me, but I got to work to break into it. So
Like
But doesn't it-
to do a specific thing.
to tap into whatever. A lot of times Hashem plans to give somebody wealth. This famous story with Hannah and Elkanah, and she didn't have her children. Why? Hashem planned for her children. Some people, Hashem has a different plan for them. She was supposed to have a family, but Hashem was waiting for her to cry, and she never cried. She never got it until finally she did cry. So we don't know what you have to do to earn the income, the wealth, the gift, but there's always the part that you have to do something. Now, sometimes it's granted. The Kohen, he did nothing, and he got the gift of a Kohen. You're right. Hashem gives some people to.
But he has to learn how to do all the steps that there are. So he has to learn something, no different than, let's say, a dancer has to practice or a pianist has to practice to do it. So that's where I'm not seeing the difference.
Right, but some people could practice and never get to that level. You can have two people, right?
No, I'm talking about somebody who was given the gift of.
If someone's given the gift, they only got to do the two people given the same gift. That's fine. But sometimes you have two people working the same hard. One person has the gift that they're going to be a brilliant scientist, and one person they should really just focus on manufacturing something. They have a different gift. The gift might be stringing pearls. The Rebbe gives the example in Hayom Yom. Some people have the gift of stringing pearls. Some of making bread.
Okay,
What's your gift? What's your gift?
I got it. So a Kohen is a Kohen, whether he practices or whether he does.
Right. He's given the gifts flat out. Okay, but the main point I want to make here is that there's two types of awe and fear. One type is earned, and one type is gifted. And then we're going to see that there's a huge difference, obviously, in what you're getting. If I gift you something, then I say, you know what, I'm going to gift you $10,000 because I care about you, or I'm going to go work and earn $10 an hour, so I'm going to earn $80. You can't compare the $10,000 a gift. So a gift is always going to be much more than you can earn if the gift is coming from someone who has resources. And that's what we're saying here. When it comes to Hashem, as much as you work, you'll never reach the level of love that you can be gifted by Hashem. But Hashem wants you to work. He says like this. It's known that there are two types of fear and awe, fear and love. Harishaynais, the last word on the fourth line. Harishaynais, the first type, those that are born to a person, mehatvuna, from thinking into the greatness of Hashem, vahadas, and applying it to yourself. As you know, you have chachma, which is also really a gift. Chachma is a spark of something that comes into your mind. Bin is a development of a thought, and das is applying it to yourself. You can have information that's really amazing. I don't apply it to myself. The importance of not smoking, the importance of any behavior. I know a lot about it, but it doesn't change me. So you have to have the knowledge, the atvuna, the understanding well, vadas, and then apply it to yourself and to emotionally. Bigdulas Hashem, ubedvarma maybe avas Hashem virasai. One type is that you have a thinking into the greatness of God. You think about it in a personal way, how God is so giving and so kind and so wonderful and so loving. That will cause you to have either a tremendous love, or if you think a bit differently, a tremendous awe. But another type is not that you have to develop it. That is what comes after you've done the best you can. You pull as much as you could, we'll take care of the rest. Hashem says, do what you can. Where Hashem says to Avraham Avinu, he says, try and count the stars. Go and count the stars. You'll see you can't. So will be your children. And the simple explanation is your kids will be as many as the stars that can't be counted. But on a deeper level, Hashem is telling him, just like you can't count the stars, but do as much as you can, I'll count the rest. So shall be your children. In life, there's been many things that they can't achieve. Let them do the most they can, even though it's impossible. I know it looks impossible. I'll take care of the rest for them. And that's a good example, defending Eretz Yisrael from enemies. You think it's possible that Israel in its own little tiny state could defend themselves on 7 fronts? We do the best we can, and Hashem takes care of the rest. We have to make our effort. So the same thing Hashem says here, do the best you can, I'll take care of the rest. And like Hashem says to Kohanim, I give you a gift. You didn't earn this. I'm going to give it to you a gift. Make sure you're born to the right family. I'll take care of the rest. And this is when it comes to Av and Yud, Hashem gives to people, a certain, like a Kohen, naturally has more love in their heart than a regular non-Kohen. You might say, 1 second, I know Kohanim, their hearts are nice. That's because the guy's ignoring his potential. You have a guy who's given the gifts of Yitzchak Perlman, and he doesn't play the violin, never even heard of violin. What are you talking about? He has violin talents. I know him for 20 years, never seen it. It's what's the famous example of that? I forgot. There's a famous example of some. I can't think of it right now. But the bottom line is that the gift that you get is after you do the part you have, and this is what we have. A measure that no one else can tap into, or no person can tap into, a level of awe and level of love that is unattainable. In other words, there's two types of love: earned love and gifted love. And gifted love is gifted by Hashem, and it's a much higher love. And therefore, here comes the point. Obviously, there's no comparison Obviously, no comparison to the love that you can develop on your own, which comes in the power of a created being, versus the love that Hashem can gift you, which comes from God Himself. So which is higher? Love that you develop? I'm not saying which is more appreciated. There's a famous thing about angels. It says, who is higher? Angels. Who is valued more by God? The human beings, people who work on themselves. And the famous example is given, you have a kid in preschool that makes a picture, or the teacher can make the picture for them. Which picture is going to be better than the one the teacher makes for them? Which one will the mother appreciate? The one the child made. What are you talking about? I made it so much better than the kid, but I'm not interested in you. I want my kid's work, but the kid's going to do it imperfect. That's how I love it. That's what has value. So Hashem says, who do I love? I mean, what's valued more? Your own effort. What's greater? Hashem says, if you do what I value more, I'll give you what you need more, gifted. And that's the beautiful relationship here. Now, how would we call this? And here's where we get into the point of today's class. How do we call this emes? Hashem, everything Hashem does is emes. Hashem does it true. What's the definition of emes when it comes to serving Hashem? So this one goes back to something you said before. I wanted to say it before, but it fits in now better. There's a story with Rabbi Maharash, a beautiful story, about this chassid who comes in. A lot of times chassidim came in, even today, but usually people come in today and ask for a bracha business, and a bracha for the this or that. And those days, it was also many blessings asked for. I wish I'd be more pious and more sincere and more davener. This chassid comes in and he tells the Alter Rebbe, he tells the Rebbe Maharash, I'm a Jew, that chassid that I serve and I learn and I daven, I do so much. But I know I'm lacking emes, I'm lacking truth, I'm lacking the ultimate truth. As he says this, he goes, even what I'm asking you now, I'm not asking you the absolute truth. I'm asking you because I know I should ask you this, but I'm not asking from the deepest sense of myself. And he goes, even this, and he starts realizing, and he faints. And the Rebbe says, that was truth. Now you're talking the truth. A lot of times people say, ask for something. You want Mashiach? You're really asking, unfortunately, the person that God forbid, someone in the family is in critical condition, or they're sitting with God forbid, no one should be in that case of sitting in a hostage in the Gaza tunnel. That person's prayer for Mashiach is much more truthful. Why? Because I have no other thing that I can. This is the core. A lot of times when we're doing a service, I'm MS. How MS is it? So we started speaking last week, 2 weeks ago, that MS would be, it's not to be confused with sincerity. You can't confuse sincerity with MS. Sincerity means I am sincere. I really decided I'm going to become a better person. The test is, did you really become a better person, or you just said it? You meant what you said, but did you really change? Wait a week, wait a month, wait a year. If that person goes on this path, you know what? That was truth that happened then. But if you don't have it, it was probably sincere. Like the example I said about going on a diet. I really, really decide I'm not going to have any more cake during the week besides Shabbos. And then the whole week you go and eat cake. I was sincere when I said it, but I wasn't at a moment of truth. Because truth is ultimate. And truth is ultimate in every area. There's no area that's untouched. Take Yaakov for an example. Yaakov is called the midah of truth. If Yaakov is true, then Yaakov can't die. Because truth is forever. Hey, it says Yaakov never died. The pasuk says Yaakov inu lemes. He never died. It means Yaakov lives on. And we explain how that's true. The Yaakov, it says, never died. He can't die because he's truth. Yaakov, it says, unlike Avraham and Yitzchak, who had one child that was righteous, one child that went off the path, Yaakov had 12 children, all went on the path. Why? Because Yaakov can't produce. So when you start examining the life of Yaakov, we'll see Yaakov represents truth. He's true when he's young, when he's middle-aged, when he's old. He always has that truth, that consistency. Like the Bria Chatika, that middle beam that goes all the way around. Like the word emes, that's the first letter, the middle letter, and the last letter of the alphabet, of the alphabet, Aleph, Mem, Tov. It's consistent. Emes is unchanging. Famous example said over and over is the river. it says that the water for the Parah Aduma has to be, the red heifer, has to be water from living waters. Living waters means that the river lives. There were certain rivers that would dry out once a year, like you have in Israel and the Wadis. Some dry out once in 7 years. Those are called dishonest waters. Because a guy who says, I'm not a thief. Okay, once a year I steal. 1 second. That's it? Once a year? That's pretty good. No, once you're a thief. What do you mean? I go 364 days without stealing. Yes. But a thief, to be honest, means I'm always honest, not just most of the time. The absolute definition of truth is unchanging forever in every place, in every situation. And when Hashem gifts you chesed or rachamim or something from above, that's truth. Now, how many of us actually got that gift? Well, I'm not going to start asking people questions, but if you have that truth, it's always there. Like the tzaddik. A person who's a tzaddik, his truth means he never, ever, ever in his life does something that's not for God. He's never had a cup of coffee because he was thirsty and wanted it. He had a cup of coffee because that was needed in the service of Hashem. So you have coffee now, it's like a daven better. There was never a sense of self in the story. If there's ever self involved, then it's not truth. It's beautiful. It's like I said, the child is making the coloring in the paper. It's valuable and beautiful and appreciated, but human beings can't tap into emes except one place, as we'll see. So in one place we have truth, and we'll get to in a second. So, so what's called truth? Love and fear that's gifted to you. Human being created love can't be true. We could have a love for somebody, and unfortunately, that love could be disappeared. Which love doesn't get changed? A love from a parent to a child. It can be covered over by foolish behaviors, but it can never go away. There are certain loves that are natural, and they are there gifted to us. And there are certain loves that are a husband and wife love. It is man-made, and therefore does not last forever. Or I should say, it could not last forever. Hopefully it does. But a man-made love, unfortunately, you see people that were married, and now there's a bitterness that is unbelievable. How? You guys are so in love with that love. It wasn't fake. It was sincere, but it wasn't truth. Because if it was truth, it would be forever. The certain loves are truth and can't be changed. Any truth that's created by human beings is like nothing. So how could a person tap into truth? And this will go into next week. There's only one truth. Tzedakah. Tzedakah is the only truth. There's a story about this person who gave a lot of tzedakah, and he came to, I think, the Alter Rebbe, what about Shalom, I forget who it was, and he says, I give a lot of tzedakah, but how do I know if I'm giving it truly? Maybe I give it because I feel good. Maybe I give it because I love the look of the guy's face. How do I know it's real tzedakah? The Alter Rebbe said to him, it doesn't matter how you feel, because the person who got it was truly appreciated. Truly was, the expression he used was, he's truly zat, which means now that he had a meal, it was truth. In other words, it's the one mitzvah that doesn't depend on you, it depends on the receiver. And once that happens, it's truth. You're sort of giving it over to someone else. It's outside of yourself. And therefore, tzedakah is the one mitzvah that it doesn't matter why you gave it, because that person received it, it's truth. Was there money transferred to that guy? That's truth. That's all you have to know. You gave the guy breakfast in your home. You gave a ride to the airport. You visited someone in the hospital. Any tzedakah, physical or behavioral or time-wise, which is actually more precious than money, that is absolute truth. And as we'll go into next week and get into this thing strongly, we'll see that is why only tzedakah brings truth, but not just truth. Truth in the level of zereah, planting. As we'll see next week, when you plant something, you don't just get back what you put in. Most things you get back what you put in, not seeds. Seeds, you put in one, you get back a tree. A tree, I put in one seed, because tzedakah is something incredible about it. That unlike every other mitzvah, every other behavior, there's a result that's unbelievable. So we're going to finish off this letter next week, talking about the two things, how tzedakah is the ultimate emes, and how it's the ultimate idea of planting, which produces much more than you put into it.